Hello guys, this is MIKEANN'S K254 and I'm very happy with you guys for a great support that you are giving me each and every time. If you are a new member, please remember to subscribe on this channel to give this channel a support of subscription. And if you are returning viewers, for my returning viewers, I want to tell you that may God bless you so much. Continue supporting me each and every time so that this channel can grow. Today's reaction is that President of US Donald Trump sent military to go and destroy Musezeni. So watch this video, then I will come for more reaction.
Hello everyone and welcome. I am your host Amina Diallo speaking to you from Washington. When Washington wants to reshape another country's politics without deploying troops, it rarely starts with speeches. It starts with levers, money flows, visas, banking access, targeted designations, and the quiet threat of escalation. That is why Uganda's post-election political climate in early 2026 is drawing comparisons, at least analytically, to the long US pressure architecture built around Venezuela, where sanctions and oil enforcement were designed to fracture elite coalitions and starve a government's discretionary revenue. Uganda is not Venezuela. It is not an oil export state on the same scale. It does not sit under a decades-long US sanctions regime. And Washington's strategic relationship with Kampala has historically included security cooperation and regional counter-terrorism interests. Yet the pattern now visible intensified domestic repression after a contested vote, paired with rising talk in Washington of punitive measures and amplified by accusations of foreign interference, creates a plausible hypothesis that the United States could progressively shift from concern and partnership to pressure and conditionality, using a toolkit that resembles the Maduro playbook in form if not in scale. Before we proceed, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you. Tell us where are you watching us from, and don't hesitate to comment. Make sure that I read all your comments. Drop your opinions below. Make sure to watch the video till the end. Uganda's political temperature spiked after the January 15, 2026 presidential election. President Yoweri Museveni was declared the landslide winner for a seventh term, extending his rule deeper into a fifth decade, while the main opposition figure, Robert Kyagulanyi, widely known as Bobi Wine, rejected the outcome and alleged fraud. What followed looks less like a cooling period and more like a tightening one. Reports of mass arrests of opposition supporters, disappearances of senior opposition figures, and the militarization of political space around opposition leadership. Reuters reported that Wine went into hiding and that a raid on his home became a national flashpoint, with the government's own information minister publicly condemning the raid and saying Wine had committed no crime, an unusually candid admission that suggested internal unease about how the security apparatus was behaving. In separate Reuters reporting, Uganda's military chief Gen. Muhoozi Kainerugaba, Museveni's son, was quoted in inflammatory terms toward the opposition, adding a volatile succession and command and control layer to what is already a high-stakes political environment. Human Rights Watch described a post-election assault on the opposition, including allegations of military siege tactics and intimidation. International attention has also risen in Europe. A European Parliament debate and statements from political groups explicitly framed Uganda's post-election period as marked by repression and a shrinking civic space. This domestic picture matters for the US involvement hypothesis, because Washington's sanctions logic, when it chooses to escalate, tends to be anchored in two public narratives: corruption and human rights. Uganda already sits inside that framing. In May 2024, the United States announced sanctions, visa restrictions on senior Ugandan figures, including Parliamentary Speaker Anita Among and others, tied to allegations of significant corruption and serious human rights abuses. Separate U.S. actions also targeted officials over extrajudicial killings, according to contemporaneous reporting. A Congressional Research Service report summarizes the depth of U.S. concern about corruption and impunity in Uganda, including the scale estimates Uganda's own oversight bodies have cited. In other words, the groundwork for pressure is not being invented in 2026, it has been building, and the post-election crackdown supplies a fresh justification for those who argue that quiet diplomacy has failed. Where the Venezuela parallel becomes analytically useful is in understanding how Washington might translate those concerns into coercive pressure. In Venezuela, U.S. strategy has combined sanctions with aggressive enforcement around oil and shipping, aiming to disrupt illicit revenue channels and constrain the regime's ability to compensate loyalists. An Associated Press report this month described U.S. military boarding of a sanctioned tanker connected to Venezuelan oil flows as part of enforcement measures and a broader effort to control or disrupt Venezuela's shadow oil logistics. Reuters has also reported recent shifts in U.S. licensing and sanctions posture toward Venezuela's energy sector following major political changes there, illustrating how Washington uses sanctions not only as punishment but also as bargaining currency, tighten, then selectively ease depending on objectives. Even in more policy analytic commentary, the emphasis remains. Sanctions and interdiction have been used to cut illicit revenue and test the boundaries of coercive statecraft. Uganda lacks a Venezuelan-style oil choke point, so the lever would not be seize the tankers. The analog in Uganda would be a pressure campaign focused on 1. The financial and travel mobility of elites, 2. The legitimacy and international operating space of security chiefs, and 3. Aid, defense cooperation, and multilateral partnerships. The clearest sign that the conversation is moving in that direction is not an executive order, at least not yet, but the public signaling. TRT Africa reported that a senior U.S. senator called for re-evaluating the U.S. security partnership with Uganda and raised the prospect of sanctions tied to the conduct and posture of Uganda's military leadership. Ugandan officials responded by framing such threats as colonial interference. Even if you discount the rhetoric on both sides, the strategic message is simple. The Uganda file is increasingly being discussed in Washington through the same escalation ladder used elsewhere. First condemnations, then targeted designations, then partnership review, then broader financial constraints if conditions worsen. If Washington did escalate in a Venezuela-like manner, again, in form rather than magnitude, the political objective would likely be the same. Pressure the ruling coalition by raising the cost of repression and corruption, while offering off-ramps tied to electoral integrity, civic space or security sector accountability. The risk, as Venezuela illustrates, is that sanctions can also harden the targeted regime's narrative. Kampala already has the ingredients for that narrative. A government facing domestic opposition, a security apparatus that frames dissent as destabilization, and a public discourse in which foreign meddling is a mobilizing theme. When a government can plausibly claim it is being punished for defending sovereignty, sanctions can strengthen nationalist cohesion among incumbents even as they damage the broader economy. That is precisely the resemblance to Venezuela that matters most. Sanctions campaigns do not operate only through economics, they operate through stories. In Venezuela, years of economic pressure have been folded into a regime narrative of resistance and external siege, even as Washington has argued the measures are targeted at corruption, human rights abuses, and democratic backsliding. In Uganda, the early 2026 dynamic looks similar in miniature. Opposition alleges fraud and repression, rights groups document abuses, international actors criticize, and the state's security, leadership and allies depict criticism as foreign intimidation. The contest becomes not only about what happened on election day, but about who gets to define legitimacy. Still, an analytical report has to underline the constraints on the hypothesis. Washington's Uganda policy is not built on a single axis. Uganda has been a significant security partner in regional operations, including deployments to Somalia. Even Uganda's own information minister felt compelled to publicly contradict social media threats about withdrawing troops, signaling the sensitivity of security cooperation and financing. A sharp U.S. break would create operational and diplomatic costs in East Africa that are different from the Venezuela theater. That means escalation in Uganda, if it occurs, is more likely to be incremental and selective. More visa bans, more targeted anti-corruption measures, more pressure on specific security commanders, and more public conditioning of cooperation rather than comprehensive economic warfare. The most realistic Venezuela-style resemblance, therefore, is not the severity of sanctions. It is the architecture, a ratcheting system where measures can be tightened, signaled, enforced, and selectively eased to shape elite incentives. If Uganda's post-election repression deepens, that architecture becomes easier to justify politically in Washington, especially given that U.S. actions against Ugandan officials for corruption and abuses already exist as precedent. If, on the other hand, Kampala de-escalates, releases detainees, reduces military intimidation, opens political space, the pressure coalition in Washington tends to lose momentum because the justification narrative weakens. Uganda today sits at the intersection of a domestic legitimacy crisis and an emerging external conditionality problem. The Venezuela comparison helps explain the logic of US statecraft pressure through targeted tools, escalation through enforcement, relief through bargaining, even if Uganda's economic structure makes the levers different. The hypothesis of US sanctions and involvement is not speculation without foundation. It is a scenario grounded in existing US designations, current post-election reporting, and openly discussed partnership reviews. But whether it becomes reality depends on two competing trajectories: Kampala's willingness to govern with restraint after a contested election, and Washington's willingness to absorb regional security trade-offs in order to pursue a democracy and rights pressure agenda. Thank you for staying with me through this deep analysis. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing and joining the conversation. The future of Africa is too important to leave unquestioned. Until next time, stay informed, stay analytical, and stay alert.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. إخواني أخواتي المرة غادي نحاول نسلط الضوء على الكتاب هذا. It's an English spotlight program that I teach my students in the second year of middle school. The subject of English. So today I will try to read some of the most important paragraphs here that I would like to share with you guys. So at a restaurant, are you ready to serve to order? Yes, may I have a bowl of chicken soup and rice with vegetables? Sure, anything to drink? Can I have a cup of tea, please? Do you prefer hot tea or cold tea? Hot tea with lemon, please. And do you have any desserts? Yes, we have.
So guys, I always tell you that each and every time Ugandans were crying, each and every time, na kilio cha Uganda kimesikizwa. Na I don't know if Museveni will rule Uganda for now. I don't think so, because as we are talking now, the Venezuela's government of Venezuela pia imeingilia kati, ina react on that thing. Tuliona hivi juzi Trump akiweza kuzungumza akisema kwamba the election that inafanyika in Africa, it must bring chaos and quarrel and war. Why that each and every time when African they doing election, it makes them to go in that direction? It seems like bado wako kwa yale mambo ya zamani, ama bado wanatazamia vile vitu ambavyo vilikuwa kwamba ni ukoloni mambo leo. And I want to tell you this that leo ama hivi juzi ama jana Trump kamuru jeshi ili liende na lisambaratishe uongozi wa Yoweri Kaguta Museveni na mwanawe Muhoozi. So mimi sijui ya kwamba if Muhoozi na mwanawe Yoweri Kaguta Museveni watakuwa katika uongozi mwaka utakapofika, ama huu mwaka ambao ulifanyika, kwa sababu election ilifanyika miezi mitatu ama minne ambazo zimepita, na as we are talking now bado hajaweza kuapishwa ama bado hajaweza kuidhinishwa kama president wa Uganda. Ni kwa nini? Ni kwa sababu wamekataa na wanasema ya kwamba hawawezi muidhinisha kwa sababu ya udikteta wake na uongozi ambao anatumia kuongoza nchi ya Uganda kwa kimabavu. Kwa sababu anasema ya kwamba yeye ameng'ang'ana sana kwa kuweza kufikisha nchi ya Uganda mahali imefika, and yet ukiangalia tu it seems like anatumia huo udikteta ili aweze kuongoza watu So sijui kama Museveni ataweza kuongoza nchi ya Uganda, kwa sababu hadi wa sasa tuko kwa tarehe nafikiri ni tarehe 16 na hadi wa sasa tarehe 17 bado hajaweza kuapishwa, na uchaguzi umekuwa miezi mitatu ambazo zimepita, na kutokuapishwa kwake ni kwa sababu mambo yanazidi kumwendea segemnege, kwa sababu jinsi alivyotarajia si hivyo. Alidhani ya kwamba ni kitu rahisi tu, ni kitu ambacho amezoea, anafanya campaign, anapiga kura, kisha anaongoza nchi kwa kimabavu. Lakini this time round nchi ambazo zimemulika, my friend, si nchi ndogo, na si nchi ambazo utaniambia ya kwamba ni nchi ambazo zitaweza kustahimili hilo joto ambalo Museveni analitumia kwa kuongoza watu wa Uganda. Na ndiposa unaona kwamba Trump ameweza kuzungumza na akasema ya kwamba lisilobudi hubidi, na amempa masaa 24 tu aweze kujisalimisha kwa ICC ili aweze kufunguliwa mashtaka, ama kama sio hivyo itamlazimu yeye mwenyewe na jeshi lake kuingia kwenye nchi ya Uganda. So mtazamaji mpendwa, before we proceed, I want to tell you that remember to subscribe on this channel, because sometimes you watch but you forget to subscribe. So subscribe on this channel so that this channel can grow. And I want to tell you that kulingana na mambo jinsi yanazidi kuendelea, sidhani kama Museveni na uongozi wake utaweza kuongoza nchi ya Uganda, kwa sababu mambo yanazidi kuwa mabaya na mabaya na mabaya zaidi. Na Bobi Wine ambaye alikuwa mpinzani wake, kwa hakika bado anazidi kukaza kamba, bado anazidi kusema ya kwamba yeye hatoachilia uongozi ukawa uongozi wa kimabavu, kwa sababu anajua and he is sure that yeye ndiye aliyeshinda kura, na hakushinda kwa asilimia ndogo bali alishinda kwa asilimia kubwa. But it seems like ni ulagai tu na ni unyang'anyi ambao uliweza kufanyika, na ndiposa yeye akaweza kuchukuliwa kilicho chake, na ndiposa unaweza sema ya kwamba amepata a big support kwa nchi za nje. Venezuela inampea support, na ukiangalia kwamba hiyo Venezuela hiyo ndio iliyosimamia uchaguzi kule nchi tofauti tofauti. Venezuela ilisimamia nchi ya Tanzania uchaguzi, na ikawa ni uchaguzi ambao si nzuri. Venezuela hiyo ikasimamia uchaguzi wa Uganda, na hadi wa sasa tunaona mambo jinsi yanaenda. Na hiyo Venezuela huenda ndiye ikasimamia uchaguzi mwaka 2027 nchi ya Kenya. Je, mambo yatakuwa yapi kwenye nchi ya Kenya? So tazama hizi video, tafadhali kumbuka tu kusubscribe, kulike na kushare. But remember that each and every time, remember unity is power. Thank you, may God bless you so much as you are doing so.
Chocolate cake with lemon. I would like a piece of cake, please. Also, I would like to try to share with you the short stories that are here that say drop everything and read. Do you know Mr. Beast? As a young boy, Jimmy Donaldson lived in a small town called Greenville, North Carolina, in the United States. Today, everyone knows him as Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast isn't just any ordinary guy, he's famous all over the internet. He has many businesses. He makes a lot of money. When Jimmy was a teenager, he loved playing video games. One day, when he was 13 years old, he had a brilliant idea. He thought, why not teach people how to play these games and make them have fun at the same time? And that's how Mr. Beast's YouTube channel was born. At first, only a few people watched his videos, but soon more and more people joined him every day. By the time Jimmy turned 14, he had over 2 million followers. He became a YouTube star and a big influencer. Everyone wanted to follow Mr. Beast's advice. But Jimmy didn't stop there. No, he was a smart businessman too. He started 3 more businesses. On Shop Mr. Beast, you can buy cool clothing and sports gear online. Then there is Feastables, snack company selling delicious treats like chocolates and nuts. The company sold 1 million chocolate bars in 3 days. And let's not forget Musezeni's Burger, an online restaurant where you can order yummy burgers through an app. Then you can pick up the food from a nearby restaurant. People wonder, why is Mr. Beast so successful? Well, it's because he's hardworking and creative. He's full of exciting ideas. His websites and social media videos are funny and interesting. He listens to his customers and loves working with his awesome team. Mr. Beast dreams of doing big things. He uses his money to make the world a better place. He helps people who are hungry, who do not have jobs, and who do not have homes. He also dreams of going to Antarctica or outer space. Everyone is excited to see what Mr. Beast will do next.